Injustice is a world-famous comic book series and a video game. And in the comic book world, it's broken down into multiple years, telling you each year that it took to get to that first video game, and today we're going to be bringing you Injustice Year 3. Batman had an idea, so he sought out Dr. Occult. Dr. Occult is an individual deep in the mystical side of the DC universe, and is actually two individuals sharing a body, Rose and Dr. Occult himself. Batman sought out Rose because she is Dr. Occult, and his plan is simple. Superman is vulnerable to magic, so why not use that against him? But in order for it to work, he'll need to remove two problems: Raven and Wonder Woman. Batman approached Rose and told her that he needs both Rose and Dr. Occult, and she turns around, instantly turning into Dr. Occult. Anything you say to me, you say to both of us, literally, Batman. We're at your service, I give you my word. So he sets off on his mission, going to Georgetown first, meeting with Baron Winters. While meeting with the Baron, another individual is standing in the back of the room, John Constantine. He overhears what Dr. Occult is planning, and once Baron Winters tries to convince the doctor not to go through with it, Constantine turns around. Let him do what he wants. He's a big boy and a big girl. I'd have half a mind to throw in with him and take down Old Blue. If only he'd ask nicely. But Dr. Occult informs Constantine, I would never ask for your help. You'd most likely leave me in a trance with my pockets picked. Constantine defends himself though. That was only once, mate. You'd think that I'd be fool enough to try that again? And so, Dr. Occult continued his journey. His trip brought him to Cairo to get the Blade of Durga, New Athens to get the living sphere from the Enchantress, to the Twilight Realm to trade the sphere to the court of the fairy, and eventually to Metropolis, where he began to draw runes on the wall. He walks into the sanctum of Raven herself, surrounded by hellfire, and sensing that something is off, she begins to throw the hellfire at Dr. Occult. He begins to pull out a gem that hits her hard, but the hellfires burn Dr. Occult alive, separating him from Rose, throwing her to the ground. But Constantine has been following behind this whole time, and as Raven prepares to finish off Rose, he grabs the gem and he hits her with it. With Raven unconscious, Rose looks over at the body of Dr. Occult and sees him dead, turned to bone. Constantine pulls out a cigarette. Rose, we both know you won't live long without him, so you can do one thing. You can finish the job. Go to Themyscira and finish off Wonder Woman. You need to fight like a proper mage, and keep your word. Rose agrees, and she begins to create a teleportation spell while Constantine gets back to his feet. I'll wrap up Raven and try to pull the doctor out from the other side, but if I save him, you owe me. If I survive, Constantine, Rose says, leaving. And then he flicks his cigarette to the ground. He then wraps up Raven in the center of a circle with another symbol on her, binding her in place. And in the home of Wonder Woman, Rose sneaks in, and as Wonder Woman wakes up, she throws dust into Wonder Woman's face, putting her to sleep. Then, as Rose begins to die finally, she knows that she needs to vanish. There needs to be no trace in Themyscira that she was there. Otherwise, they'll figure out what she did to Wonder Woman and they'll break the spell. So she warps herself to a random island out in the middle of nowhere, and using her last spell, she calls up Batman. Batman, the job is done. Raven is neutralized. Wonder Woman sleeps helplessly, and we won't survive. Don't trust. And then she dies. Batman just calls back, Doctor, who don't I trust? Who don't I trust? As she falls face first into the sand, Constantine appears behind her, rifles through her pockets, taking all of her trinkets, and then he stands up, lighting a cigarette. Your trinkets should be more than enough to hide me, and keep me from getting involved in this fight. Don't get me wrong, I think you were doing the right thing. The Kryptonian made a mess of this world, but I'm a family man now. Rest in peace, Doctor. We're both out of this war now. And that brings us to today, the end of the Green Lantern battle, with John Constantine looking at a Green Lantern sitting on what was once a house that contained someone really close to him, Rose Constantine. You see, John's daughter was hidden from everyone to avoid the problems that came with his line of work. That is until Superman and Batman's battle brought it to her. And so begins the next chapter of this war. Dr. Fate can feel the very fabric of reality tearing as there's a loud knocking at the door to the Tower of Fate, Batman's team's hideout. Zatanna and Dr. Fate get ready, with their powers charging to face whatever was able to find the Tower of Fate, and when Zatanna opened the door, she found John Constantine there with his daughter. Hello, Z. Being the masters of magic that the three of them are, John explains that he was feeling something magically watching him in Liverpool, and Dr. Fate confirms that there is something going on, and he can feel that it has aligned itself with Superman, but none of them know who or what this is. So John asks Z to send him to the world's greatest detective, Detective Chimp. This is John Constantine though, and he has his own plans to put into action, so after recruiting Detective Chimp, he decides to make a stop in hell, to Trigon's domain to ask him, do you still have that piece of my soul? Yes, little magician. I obtained the piece that you sold in hell. Well, I'm here to let you know, your daughter Raven was removed from battle by something big and nasty working for Superman.
What is it?
I don't know yet, but when I find out, will you be ready to act?
I do not trust you, little magician. Why share this with me?
Well, since you own a piece of my soul and plan to torture me for all eternity, maybe I can get some time off for good behavior. Trigon puts him down and closes the door to hell.
Find my daughter, and do not bother me until you do.
Meanwhile, over at the Hall of Justice, Superman, Hal Jordan, and Sinestro are trying to figure out what happened to the Flash, Robin, Cyborg, and Raven. They've all been taken by Batman's team and no one can seem to find them, which automatically leads Superman to believe that there is something new in play. Magic. Meanwhile, Batman is meeting with John so that John can introduce him to Detective Chimp and show both of them where he's keeping Raven, because if his plan goes south, he wants someone to know where she's bound, otherwise she'll be there for all of eternity. And he explains to Batman and Chimp that he is getting involved because he wants revenge. Superman took Rose's mother away, and while he can't bring her back in any form that you would want watching a child, he can do the revenge thing, because he's good at that. Back at the Hall of Justice, Sinestro brings in the last man to see the location of Batman's prisoners, and Superman threatens Officer Sprague's family if he doesn't help. While over at the home of Jason Blood, otherwise known as Etrigan, Batman's team and all of the magic users that will work with Constantine are preparing their plans. Almost everyone is on board with this new magical turn, except for Harvey Bullock. This is getting a bit too crazy for him, so he turns away from the group and he prepares to leave. As he opens the door, Detective Chimp comes over to tell him, "You can't think like that. Things will get crazy, but you should honor Commissioner Gordon after his sacrifice. He would have stayed. But with the door open, there isn't any magical protection on the home, and Clarion can feel it. Something's coming." Jason Blood shouts for them to shut the door, and he runs to it with Harvey pushing it as hard as he can, but it's too late, as it's blown off the hinges and turns Jason Blood and Harvey into mush, and it throws Detective Chimp to the ground. Specter has arrived, and he isn't here to play nice. Clarion and Zatanna try to get the protection magic back up and running, while Harley Quinn is upset because Detective Chimp's little hat fell off. Batman looks to Batwoman and Huntress. "Look for an exit. We need to get out of here now." And Constantine snaps at him. "That's the spirit of vengeance out there. Do you really think he'll be fooled by hiding in another room? You think he could protect us from the Specter? You could barely walk after your injury. You're bloody useless." So Batman punches Constantine in the nose, and he turns to Zatanna. "As soon as you feel the attack stop, I want you to teleport everyone out of here. I'm going out there to talk to him. He is the spirit of vengeance and he punishes criminals. We have something in common." Batman walks out the front door and he calls out, "Specter!" Back inside, Constantine snaps to and he asks Clarion what's going on. Batman is talking to the Specter. Jesus, the size of the coconuts on Batman. Zatanna turns to everyone and teleports them out of the house and back to the Tower of Fate, which doesn't fool the Specter for even 1 second as he grabs Batman. "Deceiver!" Zatanna then reappears, grabs Batman, and warps away. He walks over to Constantine. "You did that on purpose. Because you've been off your game, and if we're gonna have a chance to take down Superman, I'm gonna need Batman." Over on the other side of the tower, Harley is demanding that the Doctor come in right now. They need his help! But Dr. Fate has to explain, he isn't that kind of doctor. She demands to know what kind of doctor he is. It's complicated. "Then lead me to my operating room, Mr. Fate." Meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice, Sinestro is torturing Officer Sprague, and since he hasn't given up any information, Superman enters to tell him to stop the torture. It doesn't take much for Sinestro to convince Superman to let him continue though, as Superman walks out of the room as Officer Sprague continues to scream. Superman then enters the main hall, while Specter appears to let him know there are new powers at work against him. Over in the tower, Constantine takes Batman with him to the one person that can tell them if their plans will work. At first, Madame Xanadu doesn't want to help Constantine. Everyone close to Constantine dies, and Constantine even gives Batman a chance to leave now. Walk away before someone gets hurt. But they've gone too far. So after she copes with the death of Jason Blood, she reveals the future to Constantine and Batman. The green will grow, hellfire will burn, a dead man will fall and a dead man will rise. The Empress awakens and the Emperor sleeps. Souls will be lost and traitors triumph. The Advisor vanishes and the Joker returns. Batman looks shocked. The Joker returns? That's impossible. And on that note, Constantine puts his plan into motion. Things begin with Clarion's cat knocking over one of the candles that binds Raven, freeing her astral spirit. The first thing she does is take off to tell Superman to come for her, warn him where she is now.
But the cat knocking over the candle wasn't an accident. It was all a part of the plan. Superman takes off at top speeds, leaving behind Specter and everyone, and he makes his way to a magical house, one so powerful that no matter how hard he hits the door, he can't get in. It literally hurts his hand. So plan B, he uses the yellow ring to make a construct and tears the building in half. And inside, he finds Raven lying there bound. He gives it a clap and the gust of wind destroys the circle holding her. Raven then gets up thanking him, but while Superman isn't paying attention, Raven becomes a series of rags that wrap around him. The being that is obviously not Raven tells Superman that he can feel his murdering soul, and Constantine steps out. I know, pretty dramatic, isn't it? This is obviously not Raven, it's Ragman, known as Rory to his friends. You don't get to call him Rory. The suit of rags absorbs corrupted souls and it traps them inside the cloak until they're atoned for their sins. But you literally murdered a planet. I guess you'll be trapped in there until the stars burn out. Superman then burns through the bindings with his heat vision and he shouts out, "Specter!" Yeah, he's probably looking for you right now, but this place is pretty well hidden. You could only find it because we wanted you to. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, the Specter arrives to tell everyone that he's gone. Superman is missing and he can't sense him. So Lex Luthor gets on the computer and he tries to find the exact location of Superman's earpiece. At that moment, Constantine gets a little too cocky and he lets Superman continue to struggle. Superman reaches up and he hits his communicator, yelling, "Shazam!" As he is a being of magical power, Shazam can hear his name being called, and at the speeds of lightning, he appears next to Superman. "Ragman, get him!" Constantine yells out. "I can't. Shazam is an innocent." So Shazam grabs Ragman and he holds him up and shouts, "Shazam!" And a bolt of magical lightning comes through the roof, burning Ragman and causing a massive explosion that reveals their location to the rest of the regime. Constantine looks in horror as Specter appears and grabs Ragman. He then begins to tear the cloak apart, freeing the souls to be judged by him, not this Ragman. He then takes off Ragman's mask to tell him it is time for his vengeance. Rory calls down to Constantine asking him for help, but Constantine turns his back to Rory, telling him, "Sorry, mate." As Specter kills Rory to the shock of Shazam, Superman gets up. "Now you die, you little shit." He grabs Constantine and he demands to know where Raven is, but Shazam asks him, "Stop, Superman, please." So Superman puts down Constantine and thanks Shazam for coming to his rescue. He knew he would be here. Shazam takes Constantine and the whole group begins to head back to the Hall of Justice, where Sinestro is offering to get information out of Constantine. But things take an eerie turn mid-flight, as Deadman is waiting for them to pass through. And when Shazam comes near him, he possesses Shazam, and then he drops Constantine. John falls farther and farther until a top hat catches him, and Zatanna is waiting for him. Superman then turns around to ask what's going on, as Shazam holds his head, confused as to why he did that. Inside, Deadman and the young boy that becomes Shazam are both inside of Shazam, and they're kind of arguing as to what is going on. Billy wants to know what this is, and Deadman says that this is odd. He's never shared the inside of a person before. But not to worry, he'll return Billy's body after he speaks to Specter. Deadman would like to know why the Specter is siding with anyone in this war. Billy stares him down. "I don't need all of my body." And in the real world, he calls out, "Shazam!" turning himself back into Billy Batson. Specter catches the boy and he looks at him, and he can see that there are 3 minds inside of him. The Specter reaches inside and he yanks Deadman out of Billy. So Deadman takes his chance. "I won't be speaking to you today, Specter. I want to speak to the man inside, Jim Corrigan." The two of them stare at each other and Deadman asks, "Is he even in there?" The Specter then gives an evil grin, and Deadman looks scared. "You're not Jim Corrigan, are you? Who are you?" The Specter then sends Deadman on, because as he tells Superman, the only thing here is a spirit that forgot to fade on. He'll help him. He uses his sword of vengeance to cut Deadman in half, and his essence begins to leak out of him, so he begins to drift away. Meanwhile, at the Tower of Fate, Constantine is trying to decide what to do next, and Batman storms in telling him that he should have told him about this plan. So Constantine takes Batman with him for the next piece of it. To the first part of the prophecy, the green will grow. They then walk to the heart of the green, Swamp Thing's swamp. Back with Deadman, he drifts to the Himalayas, to Nana Parbat, to ask the goddess to fix him. Don't let him fade away. He has so much more to accomplish. And she tells him that she can't do that. It is time for the Deadman to move on, and for another one to replace him. So he asks her, "Can I pick my own successor then?" And she tells him she knows his choice. It's a wise one, and one that will return order. Back in the swamp, John asks his old friend Swamp Thing to aid them, but Swamp Thing tells him that he has already sided with Superman. Superman's cause will save the green, and that is his only concern. And John looks at him. "I don't want you as an enemy." "Nor I you, John." As John and Batman leave the swamp, John says to Batman, "We're going to have to kill Swamp Thing." Meanwhile, back in Nana Parbat, Deadman smiles as his replacement arrives. The man reaches down and he holds Deadman's hand as Deadman begins to fade off. "Thank you for choosing me. It's gonna be good to help again." And Deadman tells him, "You were the only choice, Dick Grayson. Find Jim Corrigan, Grayson. He is at the heart of this, and tell Batman, tell your dad, goodbye for me." With that, Deadman transfers his power to Dick Grayson, making him the new Deadman. Over in the Tower of Fate, Constantine gathers the group to explain the situation and the prophecy. The green will grow, the hellfire will burn. That Swamp Thing and the hellfire could be a number of things. A dead man will fall, and a dead man will rise. That's already happened as well. The Empress awakens, and the Emperor sleeps. And Catwoman chimes in. Who's the Empress? And that's when Detective Chimp walks back over. "That's Wonder Woman. My sources say that she's been asleep since this began. Did we do this?" Constantine rolls his eyes. "Yes. And she shouldn't be able to wake up, but those Amazons have some crazy gods on their side." Meanwhile, the Phantom Stranger takes Specter into space to walk the rings of Saturn and figure out what's going on. It's not like the Specter to side with anyone in a battle such as this. The Specter explains that he's just keeping the balance. Superman has made things more balanced than it ever has been before, and the Stranger tells him that Superman is not the one that he serves. So Specter grabs the Phantom Stranger and begins shoving him through the rings and into the planet. While the Specter is occupied removing the Phantom Stranger as a threat, Superman realizes that his protection from magic is gone. And suddenly, he hears a booming voice. "The smell of brimstone, the odor of death, the stench of hellfire, on Etrigan's breath!" Etrigan appears and he begins burning everyone with hellfire. Superman tries to put his hand over Etrigan's mouth, but it just burns him, and Etrigan cracks him over the head. Meanwhile, back in space, the Spectre can sense that Superman is in trouble, and he tries to leave, but the Phantom Stranger grabs him. "You think me powerless, Spectre? I am eternal." So the Spectre turns to him and stabs him through the stomach. "Nothing is. Rest, stranger. You have earned it." Back over at the Hall of Justice, Superman knocks Etrigan out the wall and into space. "Why attack me, Etrigan? What do you want?" "It's nothing personal. A deal was done." Superman grabs Etrigan by the chest. "What deal was done? What have you agreed to?" "Nothing crazy. Just to keep you close. Gone, oh Etrigan, rise instead the form of..." And then he changes into Batman. Surprised, Superman asks, "Bruce?" He throws magical powder into Superman's face, and Superman begins to feel woozy and tired, and he turns back to Bruce. "You made a deal with the demon? You refuse to stand beside me and fix the world, but you'll stand against me with hell?" He then hits the ground, asleep, and Batman walks away. "Dream of the man you should have been, and never wake to this nightmare again." While Batman and Constantine think that they've won, this isn't the end of their journey. Because Wonder Woman has also been placed in the same magical sleep ever since the day Green Arrow died, and she has just awoken, to her mother and Ares, the god of war, standing by her side. They explain that she has been in a magical sleep for months, and that it took a deal with Hera to wake her up. The first thing Diana wants to know is where is Superman, and Ares tells her, "Much has happened since you fell asleep." Over in the Tower of Fate, Batman's base of operations, he turns to his prisoners, Flash, Raven, Cyborg, and Robin, to tell them, Superman is down, and you can still undo the damage that you have done. We can be a team again. And Robin's response sums it up best for everyone. "Screw you." Over in the Hall of Justice, Diana returns demanding to know what happened. Why is Hal Jordan a Yellow Lantern? And then she walks into the hall where they are keeping Superman with Ares. But that's when she notices that Superman is wearing a Yellow Lantern ring, and she turns to Sinestro demanding to know what he did. She jumps on him and she begins to strangle him. Sinestro takes to the sky, telling the Amazon that she will not touch him again. But Wonder Woman doesn't care. She smashes through his constructs and throws him out of the building. She then jumps on him and punches him over and over, scaring everyone because she's never been this angry. Until Superman stops her by catching her punch. Ares awoke him. "What are you doing, Clark?" Diana demands, and he explains that Sinestro is with him. And she tells him, nothing justifies him wearing a ring fueled by fear. Now give it to her. So, he does. And she crushes it before they take off to the skies to talk about what's been going on, what she's missed. He explains the Lantern War, Batman's actions, and the dream that was paradise. In the dream, he had Lois, he had the farm, he had a daughter. He had a daughter! He saw what could have been, and then it was taken from him again. Now, he is that much angrier knowing what he's missed. And Diana tells him that this is their reality, and he needs to get over it. At that moment, Specter fills Superman in on the location of Batman's prisoners. They are all located in the Tower of Fate. He can't go there himself, but he can get Superman there. Which leads to the walls of the Tower of Fate exploding as Superman's regime enters it. While this is going on, Dick Grayson as the new Deadman enters the Gotham prison to find Jim Corrigan, the true host of Specter, to see if he can figure out why the Specter is acting so weird. But what he finds scares him, as Jim is laughing maniacally, not hosting the Specter. Back in the Tower of Fate, Superman punches Batman into the back wall. So Batman tells his team to pop the green pills that they stole from Superman's regime that will grant them super strength, and Dr. Fate flips the tower, mixing everything up. They all begin fighting it out with Batman vs. Superman, Catwoman losing to Sinestro, and Diana defeating Batwoman. And then Harley Quinn blows up Shazam! Constantine has a plan though as he tells Clarion to get ready. But before Clarion can do anything, Sinestro blasts him from behind, killing him. So Constantine pulls his ace out of the hole, and he goes for one final summon. He calls on Trigon! "You will burn for what you did, Kryptonian!" Trigon shouts as he grabs Superman. "We need to leave, Batman!" "You summoned Trigon?" "No one summons Trigon." "Then why is he here? Why is he attacking Superman?" "He's here because I sent out a magical beacon with his daughter's location. That and I had Etrigan spreading rumors in hell that Superman kidnapped Raven." He then tries to pull on Batman, pulling him out of the room. Meanwhile, Harley looks on Trigon. Oh my god, it's the guy from Legend! I love that movie! Are there gonna be unicorns too? Hal calls the Shazam to go find Raven now, and then Harley turns to see Shazam leaving. "Shazzy, where are you going? You're gonna miss the unicorns!" Dang it, kind of fallen in love with you a little bit. But while she's debating what she should do about Shazzy, Trigon guts the God of War! So Batman's whole team begins to leave with Harley saying goodbye to any potential unicorns, while Trigon smashes all of the heroes. But just as Bruce is leaving through the portal, Dick Grayson appears to him. Grayson explains that he now has the power of Deadman, and that he found Jim Corrigan in a straitjacket laughing, and that he was put there magically by whoever is in the Specter. So Batman asks, then who is in the Specter? Meanwhile, back in the Tower of Fate, the true identity of the Specter finally reveals itself to save Superman from Trigon. It's Mr. Mxyzptlk, and he's been following Superman since the start, keeping him safe, because only he is allowed to mess with Superman, and no one else can kill and remove him from the multiverse. Simply put, as he explains it to the heroes, if Superman is killed, then this will be a very boring multiverse for him. And with that, their epic brawl with neither truly winning but their powers being so fast that no one else can get involved begins. But as their battle hits new levels of insanity, Wonder Woman throws out the idea that maybe they should get the heck out of the Tower of Fate because there are literally two guys tearing reality apart in here. So, Mr. Mxyzptlk says, that's a great idea, and he teleports everyone to the front of the House of Mystery, where Batman and crew are hiding. He then teleports Batman and Constantine outside with Superman, and he tells Constantine, "You have some explaining to do before going back and fighting Trigon once more." Realizing the superpowered heroes have been badly beaten, Batman's crew comes running out of the house getting ready to continue their fight. But just as they appear to be winning, as they are finally beating down Superman and friends, Swamp Thing gets involved. He grabs everyone up in plant and he tells Constantine that he doesn't want to hurt John, and he knows that John was already planning to kill him. So John teleports out of the hold the Swamp Thing has on him and into the House of Mystery. But in the House of Mystery, Dr. Fate tells Grayson just how bad this is. The green is not something you can win against. But let's say they actually do. Well, then they have Trigon eventually winning his fight, and he'll turn his 4 eyes onto the group to kill them. They can't win like this. And just then, John teleports into the house to inform them that this is horrible that Swamp Thing is involved. This is not what they wanted to fight. Grayson and Dr. Fate look at him. We already know how bad this is. Well, fine, give me some time, John tells them. And Grayson gets an idea. Meanwhile, back outside, the fight continues with Diana dropping Catwoman, Harley Quinn blowing kisses to Shazam before he shoves her into the ground, and Batwoman defeating Sinestro. Renee Montoya and Hal are fighting on the other side, and she's actually beating him until he gets tired of it and smashes her with a construct. Superman and Batman are still fighting it out though, and Superman tells him that he will never be as strong as him, no matter how many strength pills he takes. And Batman tells him that he isn't going to be like him. He has humanity. At that moment, Shazam knocks Batman out of the fight. Things would be lost if not for Grayson's plan. He went to possess Poison Ivy and he has her flying the bat plane to the fight right now. As he gets closer with Shazam standing over Batman, no one is sure what's gonna happen next. So Grayson leaps out of the Batplane and into Shazam, where he instantly calls down Shazam, turning him back into Billy Batson. Poison Ivy then leaps out of the plane and into the fight, confused as to why she's even here, but she does see that the forest is burning around her due to Trigon's hellfire. That's when Swamp Thing sees her, and the battle begins with green versus green. While this is happening, Batwoman and Helena jump in to fight against Superman, seeing that he's now weakened, but Wonder Woman jumps in their way and begins fighting against them on behalf of Superman. Back with Billy Batson and Bruce, Grayson, while possessing Billy's body, tells Bruce to forgive. Grayson tells him to let Grayson's death go. That Bruce was the greatest father that he ever knew, and his life would have been ruined if Bruce didn't adopt him. And now, his other son needs his help. Damian, don't turn your back on your son, Bruce. They then hug with Batman thanking him, and Grayson leaves Billy's body, and Bruce knocks him out. Meanwhile, Batwoman and Helena are putting up a good fight against Wonder Woman. They're at least keeping her at bay, until Wonder Woman throws her lasso out and wraps it around Helena's neck, breaking it. Both Diana and Batwoman stop, and then Batwoman jumps on her shouting, "Murderer!" But all of this is the least of their problems, because Trigon is done playing games, and he is bringing this whole place down to hell. All of reality begins to tear apart, and everyone can feel it. This fight is literally hitting its breaking point. It stops everyone in their tracks. Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy stop fighting, and they begin working together to fix the green, and Diana and Batwoman stop their brawl, and even Batman and Superman need to stop what they're doing. Inside the House of Mystery, John realizes everything is done. They've lost, and the heroes that are outside of the House of Mysteries will die when it gets pulled down to hell. So Flash tells him, "Let me go. I have enough speed force in me that I can still go out there and get everyone." John takes a drag off his cigarette and releases Flash. He saves everyone that he can, and almost everyone gets inside of the house until it comes to Swamp Thing. By the time he gets to Swamp Thing, it's too late, and Swamp Thing is pulled down into hell with everything. Flash was smart though. There are two magical houses out here, and he split them up, Batman's team and Superman's team. This is only a temporary fix though. Trigon and Mr. Mxyzptlk are going to destroy everything and bring it all to hell! Grayson suggests that he can try to possess either one of them, but John tells him that that won't work. Both are outside of his pay grade, and Batman figures it all out. He turns to John. "You planned this all along. You knew this was going to happen. You're hiding something." And John disappoints him. "No, sorry. There was no accounting for Mxyzptlk coming in here causing a titanic celestial overload. They'll go supernova magically speaking unless we can convince them to pack their toys and go elsewhere. Then that's what we'll do. We'll teleport them into the void, where they can never get back to us," Dr. Fate chimes in. "Shazam's lightning can transport Billy to another dimension, and I have a mastery over lightning. I can control it." "We're out of time," John says, as the windows explode with the power of the Titans. So Grayson decides that he'll do it, and he takes off out of the house. Meanwhile, in the House of Secrets, Diana can't think of any other answers, and she decides that she will bring Raven to her father. But just at that moment, Grayson gets into the house and he tells her to stop. Dr. Fate has a plan, and it requires Billy Batson. As Grayson begins walking Billy outside, and Dr. Fate flies out of his house, Damian sees the ghost of Dick. "Dick, hi." "It's okay, Damian." Billy walks outside and stands beneath two of the most powerful beings in the entire multiverse, terrified. But Dr. Fate stands out there with him in the middle of this mess of magic. At that moment, Raven finally wakes up and sees her father out there, and she flies out into the magical storm. So, standing beneath everything with all of reality tearing itself apart in front of them, Dr. Fate stands with Billy, and he shouts, "Shazam!" The lightning comes down to Billy, and Dr. Fate redirects it onto Trigon and Mr. Mxyzptlk, and he transports them both away, ending this entire mess. The magical explosion was so great that it knocked everyone onto their butts, and Zatanna had to show up and teleport Batman's team to the hidden base in Alaska that he built a long time ago. And then he turns to Batwoman. "Where's Constantine?" Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, Superman apologizes to his team, admitting that he has made some questionable actions. If he hadn't been focused on Batman, he might have seen Trigon and Mxyzptlk coming. He then thanks them and goes into space to overlook Earth while Wonder Woman joins him and admits she was wrong. Sometimes, it's okay to dream. And Constantine? He's with his daughter Rose Constantine, the one that started all of this when Batman walks in. "John! It's about time, Bats. I wish I could say it's been a pleasure. You've been playing all of us from the start, haven't you? Your whole endgame was this, to get rid of Trigon. Took you longer than the chimp to sort that one out, mate. The chimp wanted to talk about that weeks ago. This has always been about Rose. I would do anything to keep her safe ever since Superman's bloody war dropped an alien on Rose's mum. You said you wanted revenge against Superman for that. You both deserve a shot in the bullocks. Him for being a tyrannical wanker, and you for being so simple-minded. Now, it's time for me and Rose to leave. Consider this a magical relocation program. No one will ever put my daughter in jeopardy again. I trusted you, John. Your mistake, mate. I'm not a hero. I'm just a father with a kid to raise." And as Batman watched John vanish off of this plane of existence, he looked down to see a drawing that Rose had made of a potential happy family. Mom, Dad, and her.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Comicstorian Full Story. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this and who your favorite superhero is. And don't forget, you can check out the Comicstorian main channel to get daily videos. You can join us over at Comicstorian Movies, aka Absolutely, the podcast channel, to get our opinions on everything going on in the world of superhero movies, comic books, and video games. Or you can join us over at Mangastorian, where we talk about manga. And don't forget to click the link down below to support us further. This hot sauce is a hot sauce that we have created. Hatchin' Jalapeno is a flavor that we created, which involves infusing whiskey into a hot sauce. No, it's not alcoholic, and yes, it is FDA approved. Anyway, once again, thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you next time, right here.